Well, presidential candidates have announced their running mates ahead of the 2023 elections, with some permanent and others declared as placeholders. Now, the constitutionality of this placeholder strategy has stirred debates in the Nigerian political and legal space ahead of the elections. More than these, there are the issues of the issues-based campaign, possibilities of parties' alliances, as shown again at the Ekiti Governorship election in southwest of Nigeria. Voter apathy is becoming increasingly popular in Nigeria. On Village Square today, we look at these issues and how they may affect the 2023 elections. Welcome, M. Sulaiman. The 2023 elections in Nigeria are barely 8 months away, and the major issues concerning the elections are being laid bare. It's a general election that offers many Nigerians another opportunity to take a step towards a better future through the ballot. Now, the critical issues of tribalism and religion have, like in every election, reared ahead again. Now, with Nigeria rapidly losing the beauty of its multiplicity, yes, that's the word, and the rare wonder of its diversity. Now, it's said that the next Nigerian president must be a man or a woman, but in this case, they're all men capable of bringing everyone together again. Now, the presidential candidates are woven from different clothes. There is the perennial candidate who's never become president. There is the kingmaker who aims to become king this time, and a former governor credited in the past for impressive results, and another politician with a massive army of foot soldiers. Now, the ballot is where the future lies for the next 4 years, and Nigerians have powers in their thumbs, but how far can this power go? What are the issues? Joining me to unpack this, Jiti Ogunye, he's a legal practitioner, and Abdul Mahmud, also a legal practitioner and human rights lawyer. Now, gentlemen, thank you for your time, and good to see you all. Let's start by looking at our journey, if we can actually look at that quickly. I know it's a long journey, but again, from 1999, or let's say from 2019 election up to this moment, there's been a constant show of voter apathy during elections. The Anambra election in Nigeria's southeast was just above 10%. Ekiti, which is in Nigeria's southwest, is just above 35% relative to the number of registered voters. Let's start with you, Mahmud. What do you think is happening?
It is an intriguing situation that we find ourselves as a nation as we embark on the democratic journey. Like you rightly said, voter apathy has become an issue with our democratic process. I have a slightly different view in respect of some of the causal factors, i.e. voter apathy, that most commentators have implicated in our democratic process. If you look at what happened in Ekiti State on Saturday, for example, 900,000 plus voters registered to vote, 700,000 plus voters collected their PVC. Consequentially, on the day of the elections, just 360,000 people voted. And of the 360,000 people, 187,000 people voted for the governor-elect, Abdul.
Well, I think, that's a glitch in your connection, Abdul Mahmoud. We'll come back to you. We'll hope we can reestablish that quickly. Let me go to Jiti Ogunye. Jiti, good to see you again, and thanks for your time. We're trying to look at, campaigns, elections since 1999 till this moment. If we can actually quickly delve in and see if there's been any change from what we've seen in politicking since this run of democracy till this moment. Has there been anything thing that Nigerians should look forward to in the coming elections that is quite different from what we've seen all the time?
Well, I'm afraid that from the look of things, it may well be that what we're going to have in 2023 is a replication or repetition of what we've always had in terms of the razzmatazz of politicking and campaigns without adequate time and attention being given to the real issues affecting and impacting our lives that should be the fulcrum, indeed, the focus of our campaign. Because, you know, elections are not an end by themselves. They are a means to an end. The end being to elect the true representatives of the people who, on the basis of the manifesto that formed the platform of their campaigns, and I dare say the social contract they intend to enter into with the people, who will govern on that basis. But what we've seen for the most part since 1999, not issue-based campaigns, is been a campaign around who is the big man that will come and govern at the center or at the state level, who has the wherewithal to mobilize the electorates, logistic-wise and, you know, bribery-wise, compromise-wise, etc., etc. It's been about whether the person that's going to govern a country, for example, is going to be a northerner or a southerner, whether it's going to be a Christian or a Muslim. Indeed, we've not had discussions, real discussions about whether we should have a woman as the president of Nigeria or when we will have a woman as president of Nigeria. So peripheral issues are being elevated to the real issues, whereas the real issues are then left untouched. And what are these real issues? The real issues have to do with our economy. They have to do with our politics in terms of making our politics more wholesome and more decent, so that ethical behavior will form a big plank in our political exercise. These issues have to do with the issue of our society, the issue of social provision, education, healthcare delivery, etc., etc. These issues have to do with employment or unemployment, security within the country, and the issue of how Nigerians are leaving Nigeria in droves to search for greener pastures elsewhere because of the hostility of our environment. These issues are hardly discussed sufficiently, and commitments are hardly made to such issues. When we talked about whether those who are putting themselves forward want to really offer credible service in respect of delivering the dividends, in respect of those issues. So what we've had therefore like this is that people get in the government without actually making out very grand promises. Yes, and I'm saying this, there is a whole lot of issues about whether even if they make those promises, they will easily break those promises. So we'll get to that. But the question is, in the first instance, do they even make these promises at all in a very grand manner? We've had a situation in recent time, for example, when the party in power, and this is not just an attack on the party in power, it's cuts across the board, even before the advent of the party in power at the center. We've had a situation whereby the party in power had a beautiful manifesto put together on all the things that had to be done. And then I think there are about 16 or a number of items there. And then they came to power and they reduced this to about 7 or thereabout. And we told that, oh, the president never made such commitments.
We'll come back to that. I'm happy you've opened another angle, which is basically issues-based politicking, which has been absent in Nigeria. And even when some of these issues are thrown up, what you get is perhaps promises are meant to be broken. Jiti, thanks. We'll come back. I see Abdul Mahmud is back. Well, good to see you again, Abdul. I'll let you. Yes, I'll let you finish up your conversation before the line went out. So let's hear you then.
Yeah, the point I was trying to put across is this. We can't always make the argument that voter apathy interrogates our elections statewide, nationwide, across the length and breadth of our country. We've had places across our country where voters have mobilized en masse to come out and vote. But we've also had states where representations in respect of people coming out to vote have been very low. So for me, the tampering and the mastering of the technological process that interrogates the electoral process has in a way also exposed the integrity and transparency of the electoral register. It beats my imagination when people argue that for states like Edo State, if you remember in 2020, when Obaseki was elected for a second term, in a state of 1.3 million voters that were registered, just over 600,000 people, just over 700,000 people turned up, and Obaseki had 317,000 votes. If you flip it and we move forward to Anambra State, 1.4 million voters, slightly over 300,000 people came, and Soludo was elected on the basis of 112,000 votes. So for me, we can't always make the case that what we are having is voter apathy interrogating the electoral process. I think that we are seeing integrity, transparency attached to the electoral register with the optimal performance of the technological process that were attached to the electoral register.
Mahmud, and sorry to butt in here, Mahmud. Quickly here, let me just throw this so that I don't let it slide. Don't you think that it is because of this absence of integrity or trust that informs what we're saying, talking about the same apathy of voters?
Yes, there's also a point. There's also a point in your argument. The other point I wanted to move into is this: in those states where people are turning out, there's a high level of distrust of the electoral process and of governance in our country. People since 1999 have not seen the dividends of democracy, and people just have to say, heck, why do I have to come out? Why during the 4-year cycle or tenure of a governor, of a president, of a vice president, I do not see the benefit of what I actually cast my vote for. But in a way, too, I think there's some soundness in the argument that technology, particularly beavers, I don't know how beavers will work going forward, but from what we saw in Ekiti State and all that, there was some level of optimal efficiency of beavers itself. So the number that I think that was turned out in Ekiti, bearing other causal factors, highlight the real voter strength of that state. Like I argued this morning elsewhere, as we are tampering and mastering the electoral process through technology, we'll be interrogating the whole question about the population of our country, the whole question of the numbers of people that will put out to vote in every electoral cycle. And I tell you, why INEC is mastering the technological process attached to the electoral process or system itself. Politicians, for what they are very smart, they are very clever. They always do everything to undermine the electoral process. But I always insist, and I'm insisting here, that INEC must put a handle on beavers. And if it does that, At some point, as we move towards 2023, with Oshun coming up in a month's time, we will be having some attachment, some belief, some trust in the electoral register on the basis of the numbers that we are turning out.
Okay.
Jiti is right on the other issue that we have posed about.
Okay.
You want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Jiti is right about the other question that you posed, the hollowness of the parties that we have in respect of these parties being ideological, in respect of this party, delivering on their manifesto. Like I've always argued, we have surfeit of laws, surfeit of manifestos in our country. Our problems are not with the manifestos. Our problem are with the intra-party structures within the party, the unwillingness of the party itself to dig itself within that ideological rampart that they find themselves. People say our parties are not ideological. We have 18 political parties. If you read their manifestos, they are middle of the road, right-wing parties. They believe in the efficiency of the market. They believe in the centrality of the rights of the individuals. They believe in the whole concept of the one nation and all that. I think these are ideological ideals that the parties are built around.
Let's bring sorry again, apologies for butting in. Let me bring in Jiti again, because now listening to Mahmud, drawing taking us back to Edo State in southern Nigeria, and again, the election of Anambra. One key thing here, Jiti, it has to do with what the people truly want. Listen to all of you. Mahmud has said that he used the word, we will interrogate. Now, do the people, talking about the electorate, the Nigerian people, especially those that, qualify to vote, have they truly been interrogating some of these concerns raised by Nigerians, or both of you on the show?
I didn't get the last part of your question.
The last part is, are Nigerians truly interrogating some of these key demands, that politicians have made, especially before elections?
My take is that Nigerians hardly interrogate this. And I'm part of Nigerians, so I won't dismiss Nigerians as highly uninfectorate. I won't go that far. But what I've seen over and over again is that Nigerians are very emotive voters. The bandwagon effect. Look, in the hula-baloo that is going on now, in the name of preferring a candidate to the other, have you seen people discuss issues? Have you seen them say that, look, we prefer this person because of A, B, C, because he's too for free education, because he's talking about employment, because he is going to be good on security, because etc., etc. No. What people are banding about is that, look, this person has a track record, is a southerner. Yes, in that south, some section of the south has had a bite before. There's a section that has not had a bite. So by some kind of electoral affirmative action, so that person from that part must be the person. That kind of thing. That's what we've had. And unfortunately, that has been what usually sells as election comes. And people then vote largely on that basis, even within a state. And I'm not condemning the federal character principle that is a constitutional requirement and demand that, offices in the federation or at the state level must not be concentrated in a section of the federation or the state in such a way that the other sections are not accommodated. I mean, that's a constitutional requirement. But I'm saying that even at the level of the state, even in the Ekiti state election, or the one that may happen in those states after the Obaseki years, the Eastern people are getting ready, so it's now our turn. So we see all this, and it is on the basis of that largely, unfortunately, that people vote. And so the issues that should be the focus are not, when I was a very young man, I could tell you now what the 4 cardinal programs of Unity Party of Nigeria, the 4 cardinal programs. So I had it in my head because they were always talking about this cardinal program, these cardinal programs and all that, and people lived it. I lived it when I was in secondary school. So we got 1979 came, and the money that we had paid was there was a direction that the money be refunded to us. When you were admitted to secondary school in those days, you pay deposit. It could be 10 naira, it could be 20 naira. But immediately 1979 came, and we had started school in September of that year. When October came, there was a directive from the Ondo state government, refund all their money to them. And they did, and they started supplying us free books and so on and so forth. We saw that happen. Lagosians saw what Jakonde did with free education, how the shift system in school, was collapsed, and then we had one stream in this Lagos, okay? So we had such things. I'm saying that, look, we need to focus the issues. I understand all the argument about accommodating, and I would argue, as some people seriously in my view, I've argued that, we shouldn't even talk about how our country is constituted, nationality composition of our country. We should talk about that. We should just go for the best. And so if the best is coming repeatedly, quote and unquote, now, from one section of the country, that should be it. No. I won't do that, because in all the sections of the country, you have competent people that can lead, But the point is that even when we admit all that, what is the amount of the electioneering space we devote to issues that affect our life? For example, in this country, you see people having ailments that their needs cannot cater for. Either kidney problem, those who have to be dialyzed, go on for dialysis every 2 weeks or so, or cancer. Where would they get the money to cure themselves? So if you are a low-income earner, you are not immune to life-threatening illnesses. Okay? And so how would those people survive?
These questions, again, sorry to butt in, these questions are so important, and I'm excited that we have Nigerians who are speaking to fellow Nigerians today on the show, especially as the country moves towards an election. Abdul, Mahmud, listening to Jiti and yourself, if we look at some critical issues, and Jiti used the word to qualify the voters, and it would seem as if that's the drive ever since, emotive voters who are swayed by such, emotions and mundane things. There are places, specifically Edo State, where they seem not to have fallen into the trap of religion. But let's go back to the issues based. How can the electorate start, dissecting issues and looking at them critically, because these are issues that, as Jiti has expatiated, that affect everyone, irrespective of your status. For instance, the issue of education and health, which is highlighted earlier. How can we make sure that the average Nigerian voter, against all odds, against the distraction that is at play at the moment, will say, wait a minute, these are the issues. How can these be delivered? Looks like Mahmud. Mahmud, if you can hear me, it looks like I lost Mahmud there. I'll quickly go back to Jiti. Jiti, well, you know, sometimes during a virtual show, you get to experience the connectivity, you know, glitch. Quickly here, you have raised some concerns. You've raised these issues, and these are things that Nigerians would love to know how they can not be distracted and stay on course. So, is it a deliberate act that politicians or politicking, you know, moves these issues to the back stage and put on the front burner things that will sway the emotions of the voter?
I suspect so. It appears obfuscation and covering up issues have become a gimmick used by politicians to confuse the electorate. Because you don't see them straining nerves, going to every length to explain their mission and objective to the electorate, to even get the feedback from them, whether they have clearly understood what their platform is. You don't see sufficient time and energy down to the grassroots level being devoted to explaining those issues. It's not always been like that. Before independence, and we read it in the books, those nationalists went around everywhere, villages everywhere, explaining what independence will mean for the Nigerian people. In the First Republic, in Western Nigeria, when the farmers were not happy about marketing board, cocoa marketing board, because they thought that, oh, you setting up a marketing board as an intermediary between the farmers and those who are buying cocoa. You wanted to be regulating the price of cocoa. Why do you do that? And those are the people, the farmers called Ajokosile Jereagbe, those who will stay at home and then earn the profit that farmers should earn. But the government of Aolo went around everywhere telling them, look, we needed this marketing board to regulate prices and to make some money. And that's how they did all the giant things they did, you know, by fixing prices, by walking through their marketing board, and then, you know, getting something on the side for development. Of course, the farmers were also assisted through their cooperative societies, you know, giving them insecticides so that their crops will be better and so on and so forth. It was a win-win situation. But the point was that they were always explaining this to people. In Western Nigeria, the first, because people always assume these things now, it wasn't the case that when the British were here, they encouraged Yoruba literature. No, it was a deliberate policy in Western Nigeria where the government, you know, gave scholarship to those writers. The man from Okegbo in Ogun State, all of them, and they were working to be writing in Yoruba to promote Yoruba literature and writing, okay? Because after the Bible had been translated to Yoruba, there were no Yoruba literature, no Yoruba books and all that. And then later in life, you know, Yoruba professors emerged and so on and so forth. The point I'm making is that politicians just want to talk about, just go and vote for us. Vote for us, don't vote for the other person. Don't vote for them. They were there for 16 years, they didn't do nothing. Vote for us now. That is not enough. And on the basis of that kind of razzmatazz, you see people going to vote. That is not what should be done. Just as we talk about civic education, about how to get voters to go out and vote, they should exercise their, we should be concerned about whether those voters actually know how to cast their ballot, whether they know how to, you know, pick the people they should pick. On what basis are they picking them? Is it on the basis that they are co-ethnics? Is it on the basis that they are co-religionists? Is it on the basis that they are fellow Christians or they are fellow Muslims? Is it on the basis that they are just Southerners? So whoever is a Southerner, I must vote for him because I don't want the Northerners again. Or is it on the basis of, oh, they are Northerners? So whoever is a Northerner, I will vote for him. I don't want Southerners to come and take power from another, Northerner. So we will need to spend time. We will need to encourage our political parties. The civil society will need to add that to the content. A lot of stuff is going on electoral education. Yes, go out and vote. Go and get your PVC. Go and do what? Getting the PVC is only an enablement. Knowing how to use the PVC is better than getting it. Because if you get it and you know how not to use it, it is useless. It's Thomas Sankara that says that an African soldier without a political education is a potential criminal. So if you have your PVC and you're still voting wrong, that PVC, to my mind, is useless. We need to spend a lot of time on the issue of getting politicians to educate the electorate on their platform.
And it's something, let me jump in here, Jiti, again, apologies. I thought I can bring in Mahmud. I can see Mahmud is back. Because it's very important what Jiti is saying, Mahmud, and it has to do with, and these are some of the key, obligations of political parties, apart from the umpire. But we don't see that. We seem to see less of it. When I lost here, I was trying to make some reference to Edo State. If you look at the history of Edo State, there's never been any issue about the religion of who heads Edo State, whether the deputy or the governor. Over the years, they don't care whether both are of the same faith. So how is it that Nigerians, looking at what's going to happen in 2023 at the moment, the campaign or the gist and the issues are now about religion and ethnicity instead of some of these key issues as highlighted by Jiti and yourself?
Well, it's rather unfortunate. If we go back to 1979, here history is also a teacher. We had presidential candidates of 5 political parties who were not leashed by religion and ethnicity, who picked their vice presidential candidates from the same region that they were flying the colors, that they were flying their banner. Here I refer to Chief Obafemi Awolowo of the Unity Party of Nigeria, who picked his vice presidential candidate, a Christian from the Igbo stock from the southeast of Nigeria. I think Chief Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe also picked his VP from North Central Nigeria. Nigeria has become fractious over the years. We've become deeply divided. Ethnicity has become more of a fundamental problem, and we're also dealing with the twin problem of religion in itself. And of course, too, Nigerians are becoming more. Nigerians are now recognizing the place of their ethnicity in teams of the country. So in a way, we find religion and ethnicity interrogating democratic governance in a country in a very bad way. You will not blame Nigerians. You blame politicians who will uphold the levels of power within the political parties to center issue-based politics, to promote some of the ideals that democracy is hinged upon, but they are not doing that. They are not doing that. It's a worry. You are right about Edo State, but we also have a more fundamental problem of politics in Edo State. The political process seized by political avatars who see themselves as emperors, and that itself poses danger to the growth of democracy. While we are growing democracy from being, growing democracy as a representational notion and concept. We should also abhor the whole idea of people seizing the political process, whether as emperors, whether as avatars. And it is when avatars seize the political process that they shun off the whole question of issue-based politics and begin to pose what some people have come to consider as, stomach infrastructure issues, like we saw in Ekiti State, people collecting 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira, proudly facing the cameras and boasting to the world, happy that they have done what they have done. The problem did not begin today. In fact, in 1958, 2 years before we gained our national independence, the British saw through what we're experiencing today when it issued a policy document that it titled Democracy in Backward Countries. Two salient factors were highlighted by that document. That democracy would not travel well in the colonies because of the poor economic standards of the colonial subjects. And two, because of poor education. If you look at Nigeria today and you consider the urban-rural drift, you find more voters, preponderance of voters in the rural area, whose education cannot be described as sophisticated. Jiti raised the point. Do we have electorates who are educated enough to append their thumb to the ballot papers, to append their thumb, on political parties that are issue-based? So these are some of the problems we have to interrogate that confronts us, as a people. And our politicians, while INEC is doing its best to make the political democratic process
I think
politicians are not doing their things.
Well, I don't know what's happening. I lost that sound. There's a glitch and a delay in the audio coming from Mahmud. Mahmud, it looks like, okay, you're back. Apologies, I lost you for a bit there.
Right. I'm still with you.
You just came back. There was a big glitch. Yes.
Yeah. The point I'm making is this: that the problem is historical. In 1958, the British colonial masters saw through the problems we are facing today when they issued a policy document that they titled as Democracy in Backward Countries. Two silent causal factors, were raised by the document. One, that democracy would not travel well in the colonies because of the poor economic standards of colonial subjects. And that two, because of lack of education, they projected that democracy will not travel well. And we are seeing it today. Democracy hasn't traveled well in our country since 1999. We have a democratic project that is 24 years old or 23 years old, and we still have that hollowness of issues that underlie the political parties, in themselves. How do we make political parties to be issue-based? And history is a teacher. That's why I refer to that document. How do we raise the level of education of our people? How do we raise the economic standards of our people? We saw it in Ekiti. People who were proud to face the cameras, boast, claim that they have collected 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira to vote. People who literally mortgage their today, mortgage their tomorrow for the porridge of 5,000 naira, of today. Jiti is right about education. How do we raise the level of education? Not the academic or school or four-wall education that we know it. Education that will make people to understand their political power. Education that will make people to become more sophisticated in their selection of candidates. We have people today who go to the precinct of polls who cannot even append their thumbs to the ballot papers. It is not solely the responsibility of INEC or any of the state institutions charged with statutory responsibility of educating our people. It is also the responsibility of political parties. If you want to capture power, you capture power on the basis of education. You capture power on the basis of mobilization. Our political parties are doing either of both. What they are doing is posing issues that border around stomach infrastructure, weaponizing poverty in our country.
I think that's a nice point. Looking at that phrase, weaponize. Again, apologies, I bought in there. I needed to bring in Jiti, talking about weaponizing poverty. And you've said it: mobilization, sensitization, education, all important here. And we haven't actually seen any political party doing that. I think what we've seen over the years are carnivals, dances, and appearances at some of what someone has referred to as the PPA, Poor People Area, just to have a meal with them and make them think that's all politics is about. We'll bring you back, Jiti. Help us here as we're coasting to the end of the show today. How can the people really get this education if the political parties are not being pushed or reminded or forced to educate the people? It looks more like deliberate. So if that is what it is, how can the people get the needed, sensitization, information to go all out there and change the status quo and stop making us have what we call deja vu?
It's said that knowledge is power. Education is light. And so the people themselves must understand that they have to insist, they have to demand. Freedom is not gotten by
I think, well...
is struggled for.
Okay.
That's what our people have to do. Because if they don't do that, we just continue as we've been for a long time now. Democracy is about development.
Well, I think...
bring about development. If all that we've had, or if all that it promises is periodic election that will not yield good governance, that's not democracy. So, democracy...
There seems to be this, loss of...
They must demand it by insisting that political parties must tell them what they want to know about their political parties. People go to pharmacies, they go to procure medicine by the store. What does it do? How does it work? They want to know certain things. If they traveling, they want to know how far their destination is to where they are. They want to know about That's how they should conduct themselves when it comes to election and voting. They must demand to know from candidates, from those who put themselves forward.
Well, I'm losing the connection to you, Jiti. I'm sorry. Perhaps maybe my producers can reconnect with you. There's this back and forth. We hear some string of words and the others are lost. Let me quickly come to Mahmud while we sort that out as we try to wrap up. Mahmud, I hope you're there and you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. The key thing here, listening to you both, means one thing, and it also must also include the media. The media must also join other rights activists and other Nigerians like yourself, like Jiti, to ensure that the people are enlightened, educated, and the style of, broadcasting or programming must change from playing the devil's advocate. You must start to join and interrogate as well as inform the people. So how much do you think other agencies and individuals and activists the media inclusive can play in changing the status quo, because this is a national assignment for us to have an enlightened and informed populace?
Well, if you look at Section 22 of the Constitution, which grants the media the statutory power to perform some of the roles as we know it, you're right. The media have a role to play in sensitizing and educating our people. But the media are not value. The media aren't value free. Some of these media houses that we know are also owned by some of these big politicians. But it's also important that in building the nation, in also building our democracy, every hand must be on deck. Everybody must involve in the business of nation building, because building our democracy is also about building. It's also about building nation. And the issue that belittle governance, democracy, issues that lie at the heart of our democratic project are issues everybody must take on board. The media have a key role to play, like you rightly noted. But we also have the question of sustainability of the media itself. How sustainable are the media houses for them to play their historic roles and their constitutional roles? That's a different question in itself. But within the limit of their resources, within the limit of the surfeit of their roles, it is important that we get everybody on board, begin to educate our people, begin to tell our people that
Again, I think we have...
begin to tell our people that it's important for us to build our nation. It's also important for us to promote the finest ideals of democracy, which is about representation, which is about governance, which is about trusting the people into the heart of governance in our country. We cannot do that when we begin to monetize the electoral process. If you collect money from a politician today and all that, first thing he does when he goes into office is to recoup what he has collected. So the people must exercise their right to vote without exerting the monetary and financial demands on politicians. And more importantly, as we go forward to 2023, the people must begin to put their eyes on the political process, on the electoral process. When they begin to collect money, they delegitimate the electoral process. They delegitimate democracy in itself. When they don't come out, those that are elected with fewer numbers, the legitimacy of these individuals are now questioned by the numbers of people who come out to vote. Take, for example, Ekiti State, 900 and something thousand people registered to vote, 700,000 collected their PVC, 360 people turned up, 187 people voted for the governor. The question you ask, is the legitimacy of the governor-elect really legitimate? Really legitimate. So we have 167,000 people who did not vote for the governor. So if you do a mathematical subtraction of 167 from 187, we have a governor who enjoys a legitimacy of just 10,000 votes, and it is worrying.
It is worrying, no doubt. And if Jiti is back, Jiti, quickly here before we close, let us in on some of the key things. We're still on what the media can do. And you would also, maybe you must have also noticed that there is a drop, in the culture of debate. Once Nigeria thought it was having that culture entrenched, where candidates will come and speak, on television, on radio, different, village squares, but it looks like that is almost out of Nigeria's political culture. How can that be brought back so that people can look beyond the dances and the carnivals and start to interrogate these people even around communities?
Well, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jiti. Thank you.
Good. If you can hear me, the problem you just identified has a historical foundation. In pre-independence Nigeria, the great politicians of that era were educated elites. Many of them media practitioners. Azikiwe with his West African pilot. There was the Nigerian Daily Service. Anthony Enaro was a journalist. Awolowo had founded a newspaper in 1949. Akintola was a newspaper person, although he was also a lawyer, and so on and so forth. So they were in bed with the written and spoken words. They knew the art of persuasion. But we've had a terrible transition from that era to the era of soldiers taking over power, converting themselves to civilians and becoming presidents. And then the business community are taking over. And so deal makers may not necessarily make speech makers. And so they get all sorts of people to argue their case for them rather than they coming forward to connect directly with the people and put their case forward. So in a way, the how to get back to that situation is in electing people who are not sophists, but at least who can speak to issues, who will not be afraid of debate, who will not be afraid of the culture of elocution, who will even like to appear on the soapbox, to talk and talk and talk, and people want to listen to them. Oratorical prowess is part of politicking. Look, even if that's what you are enamored of, you can't but, like the American political system, their debate and how they go to campuses to talk to young people. Obama did that a lot, and he raised a hell of money from that, to fight his election. So the way to do that is like a chicken and egg situation, is that essentially it's not by moral suasion, it's not by persuading those who are willing to come and talk to us. It's not by begging them to now develop the habit of talking to us. Many of them are in their 60s, some are in their 70s. So they may not want to talk to us. The idea is to let the people know, if you want politics to be played the way it ought to be played, if you want good people to come and talk to you, to come and enlighten you, to come and address your concern, vote for such people, so that we can bring back discourse to the heart of politics in Nigeria and our democratic debate. So the culture of debate is very important, because democracy is not attained by gun runners. It's not attained by shooting your way to power. It's by discussing, it's by speaking, it's by persuading. Indeed, the symbol of a democratic government or a representative government is the parliament, where what you have is a debate floor. But when you don't debate and talk on issues and then expect that we will be able to find problems to our multifarious problems, we'll be kidding ourselves. So one way to do that is to ensure that we use our votes wisely. But in the meantime, I think that the media has a duty. And that duty is to insist on talking to candidates, on talking to political campaigns. I know that, for example, when we are in the election season now, people will come and talk on what they understand to be the position of a political party or a campaign. That's not enough. You can't do that by inference or by deduction. Pester those candidates, pester their campaigns, bring your people of spokesman to come and talk on these issues so that Nigerians can understand, because it's so important. Our lives, we are on the brink, literally speaking, in Nigeria now, and the economy is in a very terrible state. Anybody that is deceiving you that the economy has improved, well, he has to answer to God.
I think. Sorry to cut you.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that we can discuss our way out of the trouble if we sincerely engage these issues and then get answers to them and get commitment from people who have put themselves forward to say that they want to come and lead us and rule.
Well, Jiti and Abdul, we're out of time. Engage we will. And I must thank you both gentlemen, Abdul, for being such a nice company, and of course, Jiti, for also being here. We hope to stay on this and ensure that this election, if anything, should have a difference from what we've been seeing so far. It's a wrap here on VSA. Many thanks for those watching across 54 African countries. Many thanks. I'm Sulaiman. I'll be back again. See you.